Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome, glad to have you here. Oh look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure? It's cultist coffee. What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning. It is good to see you. I hope you are having a wonderful morning. I am. I have been up and writing, actually, so I've gotten past one major administrative massive project or task I had to get out of the way. And then I yesterday finished a major or set up a major marketing effort and basically got a bunch of things submitted for that. So now I'm on the waiting side of that. And then I sat down and finally got back to writing and the creative writing part of things. And so I was going through a short story that I have got to get ready because it's got to do something soon. I started going through that yesterday, woke up this morning, was going through that this morning. We may be a bit casual today. I don't know how long we're going. And then I'm going to turn off the internet and I'm going to get back to writing and try to get, I bet I can get this short story fully edited this weekend. I might be able to do it today if I turn off the internet and I just focus. I need to focus on writing and then cleaning too around here. I talk about that. So that's what I've been doing. I thought that we would take a look at this. as I was trying to think of what to talk about today, and I thought we could take a look at this. I think this is a pretty good for kind of a casual morning grind. The AD&D Arms and Equipment Guide. I remember thinking this was an awesome book when it came out. Or actually, I don't know when it came out, when I had it. What's the publication date on this? This was published in 1991. 1991. So anyway, in probably the mid 90s when I had it, I thought this was a great book. But I think we're going to probably take a look at it and see how much our are you guys telling me my microphone's in the wrong place? I think we're going to take a look at this and we're going to see how much our understanding of arms and equipment and arms and armor from the Middle Ages have evolved since the early 90s Dungeons and Dragons. And probably things like this were very influential on the terms that we use and what armor we think exists and such. I've got coffee brewing. So in a moment, what exactly is going on here? In just a moment, I'm going to go and pour myself coffee. Good. So good morning, Sable. Good morning, Zero the Blade. Good morning, Lynn. This short story that's being edited is a Christmas story. That's why I'm trying to get it done now. I've had a Christmas story that I've been intending to write that I wrote a long time ago, and I've been intending for years to try to put it out for Christmas one year, and then stuff happens, and then it never gets out, and then wait till next Christmas, and then it doesn't get out, and then wait again. So I am working. I'm gonna try. That's why I was like, all right, this is gonna happen. It's gotta happen right now, and I got to get this edited. So I've got actually several stories that are Christmas themed. I like the Christmas theme, and it would be nice to bring one out every Christmas or something. So we will see. Sable says that weapons and equipment is a big weakness in 5th edition. Oh yeah, Zero the Blade. I have not. Well, I know what you're talking about here because I saw it go by. Excuse me, on some social media, and I was actually wondering if we should dig into that. I was wondering if somebody has a good article on that and what's going on over there. Put it in the News for the Grind in the Discord server, because I would really like to understand it. I know it has to do that. Basically, that's what people are saying, that the Unity game engine, which I have a friend of mine who uses Unity a lot. He's just an independent developer, has some games out, enjoys making games, nothing big. But I know that he uses Unity quite a bit and is a fan of that platform. It's what he knows and what he uses a lot. So we could probably take a look at that, because I know that is a big thing that's happening right now. Sable says a big part of that is the lack of using resistances and vulnerabilities in monster design as well. But functionality, there's no difference between weapons save die sizes. There's no difference in armor except cost. Okay, yeah, so let me know. Nemesis engine is way better for D&D. Sable says, I've been hearing and following that. This is the year for companies to destroy their consumer goodwill, it seems. I love indie games more than mainstream, so it concerns me. Let me go in here and we can do our breathe and sip, but let me pour a cup of coffee. Well, so I don't know. Is it too early for
Oh, it's time for a Yeti hug break. Yeti hug break, Yeti hug break. Everybody go hug yo Yeti and show yo Yeti some love.
I need to make note that I still don't have. Let's see. Find. Let me make note of this. Find the revised morning grind break with Yeti attached. Frederick says the AD&D Yeti is a very dangerous foe. All right, let's go over here and let's bring up the. Wait, my auxiliary camera. Get stuff out of here. All right. All right, there we go. The arms and equipment guide. And, so right here, got coffee now, which is brewed this morning. So let's take 2 deep breaths, deep inhales, complete exhales, and then take a sip of our favorite beverage this morning. I actually have coffee this morning, so here we go. And sip. Much better. All right, let me move over my microphone. And let's just take a look at what's inside this. Hey, guys like gear. So here's our book of gear. All right. Oh, hey, Jason. Yep, get your drink. Jason says, hey, it's good to see you. Okay, one other thing I've got to do is I got to turn off this fan over here. I told you, today's rather casual. It's true. It's true. It's true. Oh, hey, there was a really funny comment. Let me find it. On the Table Talk. It was over on the Table Talk channel. I was looking at, comments across the different channels and things like that. And I noticed you might recognize him from over here. I think he found us. I don't see him all that often on the morning grind. But Fire Steak Aries is who he is. And he was commenting on the What is Story Table Talk. And he says, I like the part where Heath, after belaboring a point for 2 hours, says, I don't want to belabor that point. Comedy gold. So maybe I was a bit belaboring. All right. So this was, let's see what's in here. We didn't have great references for this stuff. At the time of this publication. And I think that's what made it such a fun book to have. Because it says, Dungeon Masters the world relax. Until now, you've had to duck and dodge questions about armor, lengths of swords, and the blades, or lack of them on pole arms. At best, you said it kind of looks like, at worst, you've had to go to a library and look up such information. A few of you are fortunate to be scholars of history and already know the answers to such questions. But for the rest of you, this book contains the information you've been waiting for. The Arms and Equipment Guide is the most complete compilation of information about armor, weapons, and equipment for the AD&D game to date. It's intended to help both DMs and players to understand and better use the wide variety of equipment available. We've included a plethora of illustrations to make this volume as user-friendly as possible. For DMs, be aware the information in this book This work encompasses a wide variety of equipment suitable for many campaign styles. Don't be afraid to veto certain weapons or armor to suit your campaign world. The intention of this book is not to provide adventurers with every weapon known to man. It's merely to expand the choices available. Feel free to disallow any items that don't fit the grand scheme of your campaign. Historical accuracy. It says, every attempt has been made to assure that information present here is historically accurate. Now, I think we're going to... That could certainly have been true for the time, too. Because our understanding of medieval arms and armor has changed. I remember... even if you go and look at some historical, scholarly historic texts, history texts on arms and armor, I remember having some that were older that still believed in the existence of a bunch of different kinds of arms and particularly armor types that we just don't think exists anymore. Dungeon Master says, we loved this book, but hardly ever used it, but it gave gold ideas. Jason says, I should have kept all my old D&D books. Yeah, I lost a bunch of them in what I call the purge. I had a lot more of them, and then over time, I went back and I slowly rebought some of the ones that I really preferred having. And this was one of them, just nostalgia, basically. But like I said, so this may be historically accurate according to the time, but I had read some historical books that had some bizarre ideas about medieval arms and armor. However, scholars of history often disagree among themselves, resulting in conflicting opinions among resources. You'll find the information in this volume disagrees. If you find this information in this volume disagrees with what you know of history, consider checking one of the resources listed below. Okay, well, that's interesting. Or chalk it up to a different historian. If you're convinced we've blundered, we're always happy to hear about it in a letter. Any documentation you can provide would be appreciated. Weapons is the longest section in this book. The weapons chapter has some unique features. You'll find comments from seasoned adventurers in italicized type. These are intended to offer new ideas for role playing, and you'll find numerous boxed entries. These boxes contains interesting historical tidbits that might provide role playing ideas or are just fun to read. With these things in mind, be ready to go forth and conquer. Here's hoping that the Arms and Equipment Guide will help you do it. So this is interesting. So we're referring. We're referring. Obviously, this book was published in 1991. Ashdown, Charles Henry, Ashdown's European Arms and Armor from 1967. Mary Brooks Picken, The Language of Fashion, 1939. Jack Casson Scott, Costumes and Settings for Staging Historical Plays, 1979. Alfred Dugan, 1962. The Armorer and His Craft from the 11th to the 16th centuries, 1912, re-released in 1988. What People Wore, 1952. The History of Men's Costume, 1985. The Glossary of Construction, Declaration, and Use of Arms and Armor in all countries, in all countries and all times, by George Cameron Stone, 1961. The Complete Encyclopedia of Arms and Weapons, 1979. The Encyclopedia of World Costume, 1978. So there's a lot of 1960s, 1970s, and earlier that are being referenced here. So even though this book is 1991, the references are from decades earlier. I do like this picture. Lynn says, AD&D Second is the edition I missed entirely. It was a sad non-gaming period in my life. I had those two. Plethora is such a Gygaxian word. Jason says, yes, the purge. I did the same thing. I've been thinking, like I said, because I've got so much stuff around this house now. Well, the reason I got rid of a bunch of gaming books was I was like, well, I'm an adult now. I guess I'll never have anything to do with gaming anymore. And so I was trying to lighten my load anyway, because at the time I was doing a bunch of traveling and moving to different places for jobs. And so I just got rid of all my books during a non-gaming period in life. And then I was like, you know what? Then I all of a sudden ended up back in gaming years later. I still think I still have too much stuff in this house, though. I used to be rather minimalistic, and I've been thinking about going back to that. That doesn't mean getting rid of gaming stuff, but especially if I'm interested in doing some more travel and going from place to place soon. It sure would be nice to have a lighter load. That's one reason actually why I have resisted getting a 3D printer, because I just know that like I've got plenty of little bits of plastic around this house. I've got tons of plastic objects around this house. But I'm getting close I've got a project that I want to do in January, and it involves 3D printing. And so I may finally have to break down and get a 3D printer, because I'm going to need one for work over here. But I've been resisting because I don't really need any more tons of pieces of plastic. Because I could just have, I'm thinking about, I could have a 3D printer over there, and they could just be making me plastic objects all day and all night, and I could just fill the house up with more plastic objects. But really, I don't know if that's such a good idea. Frederick says, a lot of game masters are scared of black powder weapons in their game. It can be very exciting when the party fires off a volley underground in a small room. What game were we looking at? We were looking at a game that we thought did black powder weapons well the other day, where that was an integral part of it. A Rogue Thinker says, did anyone mention that Palladium came out with a book called The Compendium of Weapons, Armor, and Castles? It has a huge variety of items, but its accuracy is suspect. No, I didn't know that. No one's mentioned that. Lucas says, I only play original AD&D and have all the books. Just looking at comments here. Oh, Jason said, same thing. I'm grown and no need to game. We were on a similar path. Yeah, suspected accuracy. Ring mail. Actually, ring mail isn't actually a thing. And at the same time, most game systems do not include brigandine, which is a very common armor type. So, right. And probably ring mail is still something in here, because there's been a lot. There seemed to be a lot made at one time about the different depictions of mail in illustrations, in period illustrations, because people have depicted mail in a variety of different ways. And I remember one of the things in some of the older books that I had on Arms and Armor seemed to make a big deal about that. They seemed to make each different way an artist might have represented mail some type of different type of armor, which is where I think ring mail comes from. And what that would be. But there are no examples of it. And I think the trend now is to just accept that there are multiple different artistic interpretation or artistic depictions of mail. So padded armor, AC8 back here in description, padded armor, also referred to as quilted armor. So this is like gambeson or Akaton. You know, people, you know, of course, they didn't classify things like we do. So I think today we would probably call this gambeson. I think you could still call it quilted armor or padded armor, but basically gambeson, right? But then there's a difference between whether or not you wear something under other armor, whether it's intended to be something under other armor or worn as armor itself. And I've heard different people talk about the use of the term Akaton versus gambeson. And I did typically, I think I used the word gambeson a lot to refer to things that were underneath other armor. If I were to do, you know, that's really an important part of 14th century armor. I would love to have a 14th century suit of armor, but that's the basis of that armor. You've really got to build it from the inside out and do that really well, because it's built on your arming coat. There's another term. And your under layers to put all of that armor together. Padded armor would be called gambeson, right? And yeah, I don't think this uses the term gambeson. Yeah, see, then when you're getting to arming doublet or a pour point, that's when you're actually talking about something that is designed to be worn under other armor. And when you're talking about the pour point and the arming doublet, you're talking about, or you have pour points, sometimes actually the tie itself. Maybe padding for under armor, but it's that structure that your other armor ties to. And clear these guys over here, the way they're intending this over here, this looks more like how people use the term gambeson right now as standalone armor. Padded armor typically covers the chest and shoulders, but full-length suits are sometimes seen. Campaign use. Padded armor is mostly found among the poor and unskilled. Only the poorest excuses for armed forces would be caught dead in padded armor. The bulky and restrictive nature of the armor makes it a poor substitute for a stout set of leather. Village militias, neophyte bandit packs, urban street games, and primitive barbarian hordes are the most common users of padded armor. In short, this includes anyone who can't afford leather armor, the truly destitute, cultures without the technology to tan hide, the truly primitive, or those who have no other option at their time in need, the truly desperate. Padded armor can make... See, that's also a little bit contradictory, because there's been a lot of work done in experimental archaeology or history about the effectiveness of gambeson as a standalone armor. Quilted, Lynn says, quilted padded armor is basically gambeson, I think. Sometimes it was used underneath other armor. Hellishly hot, I hear, but effective and cheap. Yeah, there's a lot of... I bet we could find a lot of videos about people demonstrating the effectiveness of gambeson. So it actually seems more effective than they're implying here. In the movie 300, the hoplites can equate to an armor class of 18 to 24, and they have skin exposed. I always house rule out 5e padded armor to not give disadvantage on stealth. Oh, padded armor gives disadvantage on stealth in 5e? If there's any armor that should be a stealthy armor, it's freaking cloth. That seems like one of the trade-offs that you should be making. Padded armor being padded armor can be made for any race or nation. Thus, it's common protection for poorer classes. Since making a padded suit of armor requires little more than crude needle and thread, low-level or desperate adventurers in need of additional protection can usually whip up a set of padded armor in less than 2 days. The durability and level of comfort provided by the homemade suit naturally varies in direct proportion to the skill of the would-be armorer. For game purposes, several layers of heavy cloth or fur can be considered padded armor for the purposes of determining a character's base armor class. Padded armor, being little more than multiple layers of clothing, tends to soil and wear out easily. Although newly fashioned sets may sell cheaply, padded armor must be replaced often, even if it's well cared for. Lice, sweat, dirt, fleas, and insects all take their toll. I don't want to wear something with fleas and insects in it. If the DM judges that a set of padded armor has seen its last days, the armor class of the armor drops 1 place, AC 9. The armor, now rotted and torn, is little more than bulky clothing. Importantly, heavily soiled armor reduces a wearer's saving throws against disease and disease-causing spells by -2. In ideal conditions, a set of padded armor should be replaced monthly. I wonder how they get that. However, when traveling through heavily infested swamps and monster-laden forests, padded armor may require replacement as often as a few days. On any long journey, spare sets of padded armor should be taken along as if they were spare sets of clothing. Too much frugality before a journey can lead to much discomfort later. And sometimes you had this worn... The gambesons worn over armor as well. That's like a 14th century thing. Sometimes you even wear it over a breastplate. Under ideal conditions, naturally, those who have no access to better armor try to make the best appearance whenever they can. Nobody wants to appear cheap or desperate, especially when they are. Therefore, decorating one's padded armor is the most common form of upgrading the appearance of one's forces. All armies and nations have banners and shields adorned with their own colors, and these colors are often repeated in intricate patterns on their padded armor. This is most often seen when the local king or noble quickly recruits the local farmer's militia to defend his lands or aid him in launching an assault. The wives, sisters, and daughters quickly whip up anything they can to protect their ill-trained husbands, brothers, and sons. The colors of the Lord are either quilted into the design of the armor in checkerboard fashion or painted or dyed in hastily prepared protection. In similar fashion, the most nefarious of evil knights have been known to use quilted armor to camouflage their own soldiers as peasants of the opposing ranks, taking advantage of the militia's known lack of combat training. This is only one of the reasons why level 0 fighters are neither feared nor respected by the armed forces. Certainly in this case of padded armor, you can tell a knave by his suit. They don't really care. They're not really big on gambeson. Lord Fullmine says, medieval clothing was much more durable than modern clothing. I would gamble, so I would think. Well, yes, fleas and lice are historically accurate. I just wouldn't want to be wearing armor with fleas and lice growing in it. Let's see. So then we go to leather armor. And this one is also the existence of leather armor and how it was actually made and how common it was has also changed. Of course, leather armor is quite common in fantasy and also in cosplay. And you can see some people making some fantastically intricate suits of leather armor. How effective they are, well, I'm not sure. And, we may never know. Although I'm sure there's got to be some people who are doing experiments like on YouTube with effectiveness of leather armor. Gambeson was very effective against bladed weapons, not so much against thrusting weapons, but everything save plate had trouble versus thrusting weapons. Sable says, yeah, leather armor was very likely not a thing except for things like vambraces or greaves, or as a substrate for, you're talking about splints or things like that. And then there was curabul, which is the boiled leather armor. And I'm not sure what the current thinking is on waxed leather. I've made waxed leather armor before, and it seemed to work reasonably well. Now here it's pretty hot, and so it would soften. But waxed leather appears to work, but I'm not sure how historic that is either. It's been a while since I really looked into the waxed leather. I tried just doing boiled leather to do curabuli, but I didn't get it to work. But I only did a limited experiment in that. Okay, Sable's talking about that. You can make boiled leather extremely hard, but its durability versus the elements is low. And I was having trouble. I said I didn't experiment with it too much. But I was having trouble with getting it shaped. So the waxed leather was easier to shape for me personally. So I just did that because I was able to just stitch it together. I've seen some people make some really nice waxed leather armor. If you're going to make it, I think it needs to be waxed. But if you're fighting here in the South, your armor can soften. Where was I going with that? Well, whereas I had much more difficulty boiling pieces of leather and trying to get it to shape because it tended to thicken up. Now, actually, I do have I put together lamellar. I did put together leather lamellar, and that was boiled leather. Hang on. Let me see if I have my boiled leather lamellar. I think it's in the closet. Found it. At the time, I was really proud of this. Oh, so Multiverse GM says Alexander the Great had a Kevlar-like material used between layers of leather for armor. I think I know what you're talking about. There's I've seen people do experiments with it. I forget its name. They're using a cloth type armor. It's I know what you're talking about. Sable says it's funny they don't have silk armor here. Silk was highly prized because it wouldn't tear around a thrust, and you could use it to draw a projectile out of a puncture. And I've heard about the Mongols doing that, but I'm not sure how historically accurate that is. Let me go over here. At the time, I was really proud of this piece of armor. I had done this. So this is boiled leather. It's not. So it's not very. It's not terribly rigid, but I would say this was my basic. This is my most successful attempt at boiling leather. It did give it a rather nice look. I love the look of this armor because I think the boiled leather lamellar plates, lamellae, look really nice. And so at the time, I was really proud of this, and I thought it had a really good look. And then right after basically, as soon as I finished making this, I was required to wear metal body armor. And so then I made metal lamellar. So this one didn't get a whole lot of use. But I do think it's got a good look. I think it's got a good look because the brown leather boiled. So it's kind of stiff and rigid, but it's not real stiff and rigid. I'm not exactly sure how it would hold up against cuts and thrusts. But I really like that suit of armor. But then I went to metal lamellar right afterwards. Dungeon Master says, personally, I prefer fantasy bent arms and armor over accuracy in D&D anyway. Realism suits other games much better, grittier, harder games. I always prefer it in the games that I've been developing it. Lynn says, Kurabuli existed, but it was more often used for things other than armor. It popped up as fancy tournament armor because it could be tooled and decorated. Yeah, and you're talking about, yeah, you can decorate it and you can mold it. And so I've seen them using it for like things on chests and things like that too. Lord Fullmind says the economics of fantasy leather armor doesn't line up with the historical based campaign. People aren't eating cattle at the rate we do today and in the modern world. Hey, Michael. Dungeon Master, this armor discussion is fascinating. It gives me ideas. Yeah, actually, you know what? This may end up being, or this is a fantastic discussion. I thought that, hey, this would be a casual discussion going through this book, but it actually may be that going through this book will spark all kinds of conversation in the chat and could go over several days because this is an important topic. Well, I'm going to have a trouble reading IPA transcription. If you care, the snooty French way to pronounce Kurabuli is, I'll have to look that up. You know, there's, should you pronounce armor in a French way or an English way? That's a good question because I often do hear the French words that would be French pronounced in an English way. And I've had a friend who was telling me about that over in the when he was at the Royal Armories in Leeds. Which, by the way, I've got one of the trips I got to take is I've got to get over to the UK. I want to go to England, Wales, Scotland, and I want to go over to Ireland as well. And that should be a fairly simple one to do. But because I really do want to see the Royal Armories in Leeds. Excuse me. And I had a friend that went over to the Royal Armories, and he was like, they always said armet, an armet and a bassinet, instead of a bassinet or an arme, or gorget instead of a gorget. So there is
precedence for the English pronunciation of the French kinds of words. And actually, my friend said he brought that up because they were always talking about armets and bassinets, and he was like, "Wait, isn't that like bassinet?" And the guy at the armory was like, he said, "Yes, it is," and then turned around and went away. So apparently, the English just use English pronunciations. Sable says that does look really good. Oh, thank you. Oh, nice. Wow. I like making stuff. I like making stuff. That's why I was making stuff for the games. You know, the painting miniatures, making dungeons. That's kind of difficult now that we're quite, a little bit less, has a little bit less point to it since I seem to be transitioning to only online games. But going out and making armor, I do enjoy it. Although the efficacy of wearing it over a regular gambeson that you'd already be wearing is debatable. Yeah, probably. It was. That was yes, it was. That was a lot of work making that. And I was very proud of it. That was my nicest piece of armor at the time. I said, all right, fine. I'm finally going to make a really nice set of body armor. And so I made that, and it did. It took a long time to cut all of those leather lamellae and then punch them all and then lace them together. I'll show you the back. Oh. Well, it's difficult to look inside. It's all laced on the interior. You can find stuff online about how to lace lamellar. So that's all laced. And like I said, I was so proud of it. And it did look good. It did look good. None of the rest of my armor looked good, but that looked good. And then, but actually, one of the requirements of being squired to the knight that I was squired to was that you had to wear metal body armor. So I had literally just finished that. And then one of the requirements was, well, you got to wear metal body armor. So I wore that maybe once or twice. And then immediately made metal body armor. Leather lamellar is what all the cool GMs are wearing this season. Yes. Right. Salette versus Saleh. Yes. Yeah, but dungeon hunters prefer. Yeah, if you're going for the more fantasy kind of thing, like leather armor for out of dragon hide and stuff. Yeah, I say gorget. So I tend to say, I definitely say gorget and Saleh and bassinet. Well, do I say bassinet? No, I say bassinet. Although I hear both. But there's a good, right, exactly. That's why I think they did that. Right, yes. There's the bad blood between the English and the French. They still haven't gotten quite over, so I bet they pronounce it wrong on purpose. That was exactly what I was trying to get at, what my friend was implying, that seemed to be a deliberate choice of the armorers at Leeds to not pronounce that in a French way. So, right, yes. Right, exactly. That was my taking as well. I love the pig-faced bassinet. I want one of those. That's one of my favorite helmets. If I were to make one, they're complicated. The pig-faced bassinets are complicated to make. I'm probably not good enough to make one, to make that. But I would. I love the pig-faced bassinet. So Lynn says there's a long tradition of pronunciating adopted French technical terms as if they were English. So curabouille. So is that a better English pronunciation of that? Curabouille. How long did that? I don't know. That took not nearly as long as the mail I did. It probably took weeks. Now I didn't work on it full time. But that was a lot. I don't remember. It took weeks. It's been years since I made that. That was years ago that I made that. But it didn't take as long. I did a budded male hauberk. But lots of people do that. I did a budded male hauberk, and not nearly as long as that. Okay, so anyway, leather armor. What does this say about leather armor? So we got. So this book is probably going to inspire fantastic conversation. So this probably is going to be a multi-day effort, which is fine. So leather armor description: leather armor, despite popular misconception, is not soft and supple like the leather used to make ranger's boots or a druid's robe. That kind of leather offers no better protection than common clothing. Leather armor is actually strong and stiff, having been hardened in boiling oil and then stretched over a wooden or stone model of a man or a woman's chest. The result, that seems like it wouldn't work. That probably is not how they do it. The resulting back plate and shoulder guards are combined with a tunic and kirtle, and in colder climates, leggings of wool and soft leather. Sometimes in fantasy, you see people distinguish between soft leather and hard leather armor. Oh, there's a controversial subject, Sable. Oh, Sable says, this gets my HEMA fanboy blood flowing. There's a HEMA group. There's an SCA group in Birmingham and a HEMA group that meet up on Sundays. I never, it's too far away. I don't get to go. But Rachel, who's been on the show before, goes up there and does HEMA with them. But boob armor. All right, that's the controversial part. Yeah, that could be. See, I can see that working better than what they're talking about right here. Because you can mold leather. I mean, you can do that. And so, yeah, when you're talking about holsters, I think that some of the work that they do on the holsters is kind of made like that. That might be where that comes from. But that's not, those holsters aren't hardened in boiling oil and then stretched over wooden or stone, like some kind of model of the gun. They're often just wetted, I believe. So it's a moist leather that goes around and then it's wrapped and then dries, because you can mold it when it's wet. So campaign use. This is the most common form of modern armor, according to Advanced Dungeons & Dragons in 1991. The material, leather, and oil are readily available in all civilized lands. Only the technique for boiling and shaping leather is necessary, and this is not a difficult feat for a leather worker. This armor is both inexpensive and durable. While the armor is extremely stiff, it's never fashioned anything larger than a breastplate, which keeps restriction of movement to a minimum. And I'm skeptical of the existence of that. Yeah, I know, exactly. This is actually probably the perfect topic for the morning grind. It says you have over a dozen gaming historic geeks with opinions about armor watching. I said guys like gear. Of course, there may be girls here too, which is fine. But yeah, so gear is probably a popular topic. So while this armor is both inexpensive and durable. While the leather is extremely stiff, it's never fashioned anything larger than a breastplate, which keeps restriction of movement to a minimum. Naturally, this arrangement means leather armor affords no protection to the joints, but this is true of most armor and has been a challenge of all civilized races have been attempting to overcome since wars began. In severe combat situations, leather armor may need to be replaced weekly. They're really big on replacing armor a lot. However, the armor is, which they don't actually have like rules for degradation of armor in AD&D that I remember. Maybe it's in some book someplace, but they're talking about a lot of replacement here, but they don't have a mechanical way to show your armor's degradation. However, the armor is easily cleaned, reasonably unaffected by weather, and resists all but the severest of abrasions. This means a good set of leather can be worn daily for many months without need of replacement. Many retired warriors and militia and middle-class militia have a set of leather armor stored away they can take out and polish at least annually. Because raw leather comes from a byproduct of medieval daily life, eating beef and other meats. Well, here we go. We're talking about how often. So I don't know. So we got some comments in the comment section that eating beef may not have been as common. You may not have been going through that many cattle. I don't know. In civilized societies, leather armor is very common. Even rural communities have little trouble manufacturing leather armor for the troops within a few days. Cows are not the only source of hide for tanning. Horses, sheep, and camels can be used just as easily. In short, the creature must have a thicker skin than that of a normal man, but not quite as thick as that of an elephant or bear. The skins of these well-protected creatures, when tanned, becomes hide armor. Irregular human forces, militia and levies, freemen, commoners above the peasant level, barbarians, light infantry, and marines are the primary users of leather armor for the following reasons. Leather armor is drastically cheaper and more readily available than metal armor. The armor can be worn for long periods of time without leading to increased fatigue or disease. C, the method of protection is so simple that many armies can make new sets of armor from cattle seized in newly raided territories, often scant days before meeting the defenders in battle. And D, they can be stockpiled for years without the need for excessive maintenance required by metal armors that are prone to rust. Another benefit of leather armor, much extolled by those of more reputable persuasion, is the ease in which they can be silenced. Leather armor is not typically noisy. Its buckles and fasteners tend to rattle and clink. Unlike metal armor, leather armor is easily muffled by clothes, and as such makes little sound during normal movement. Additional layers of clothing further dampen sounds made by the wearer when hiding. More rogues than can be counted on owe their lives to muffled leather armor. The freedom of movement, adequate general protection, lack of noise, high availability, and low price makes this the armor of choice for the general human population. Interestingly, this is also AC 8. I forgot about this. So in AD&D, this is AC 8, which was the same AC as our padded armor. You would think there'd be a difference there, especially the way I was talking about it. But in AD&D here, we've got both padded and leather armor being AC 8. Yeah, see, the economics is that too. I mean, it's not like, even today, it's not like leather armor is particularly cheap. There are all sorts of economic reasons why leather armor probably didn't exist in that way, especially besides just durability. Lord Fullmine says, I loved this book as a kid, but it was made by people that likely had never seen or made these items, referencing books by people who had never made these items. It's easier today in a lot of ways. It is. We live in a golden age of just about everything, including the golden age of, a revival of, first of all, armoring techniques, and then also just better research. Everything from more scholarly research to just the tests and things that people do on YouTube and have a lot of fun with, as far as, demonstrating or trying out different types of armor against different types of weapons and bows in which is a variety of different ways on YouTube, but can be rather scientific ways. Some orc hide, some orc armor. Yeah, we talked about Dark Sun. Dark Sun doesn't have metal armor. It does. I was about to bring that up. It does creak when you walk. That that lamellar that I've made down there, it kind of creaks. In everyday use, that's not important. But I suppose if you're really trying to silence it, that would be a thing. Because that, when I walk in that lamellar, it does kind of creak. Well, that's the thing. The AC should be depending on the weapon being used. And we've talked about that in other videos on the channel. We talked about there's the realism in RPG combat and trying to get some minimum amount of weapon type versus armor type. You could get real complicated there, and you can easily get more complicated than you need to in a gaming environment. But there's probably some optimal level of type of weapon versus armor. Here's one. Here's a controversial one. Studded leather armor. And I think that I think the going wisdom now is that there is no such thing as studded leather armor. I've never seen an example of this. It's often shown in a lot of fantasy. And actually, studded leather armor, this is one of the earliest types of armor that I was familiar with because Xanadu has it. You have armor in Xanadu, my favorite game. And I was actually watching people do speed runs in Xanadu. The other day, I turned that on while I was cleaning, watching some Xanadu speed runs. But studded leather armor was a particular type of fantasy armor. I didn't really know it was fantasy at the time, but a type of armor that I was well acquainted with as a kid because in Xanadu, you get studded leather armor. But it seems like the going wisdom today, I believe, is that studded leather armor is misinterpretations of things like brigandine. That the studs on the outside are something that holding stuff in. They're not like putting in the brigandine plates and are not the armor in and of themselves. Because it also seems like it would be kind of a weak armor. Like you would need a lot of studs in order to make this effective armor. And I still don't think it's going to be all that effective. Multiverse DM says, think punk rock. Dark Martens, spiked gloves. Lynn says, I'd rather be wearing leather or gambeson than chainmail if being attacked by arrows or a mace. This is making me want to get together a suit of armor again. I never completely finished my armor the way I would like to have it. Do one and then do the 14th century set. The 14th centuries can take a while and be expensive. Okay, so studded leather armor, AC 7, according to AD&D. Studded leather armor has little in common with normal leather armor. While leather armor is a hardened shell, studded leather is soft and supple with hundreds of metal rivets attached. The rivets are so close together that they form a flexible coating of hard metal that turns aside slashing and cutting attacks. This soft leather backing is more than a means of securing the rivet. The soft leather backing is little more than a means of securing the rivets in place. And sometimes you see in like fantasy movies, people do studded leather armor, and sometimes they have the really big studs, you know, that are basically just going straight up and down the armor. But I don't know that we had those. Len says, I worked out an AC system that wasn't too complicated, but at the same time sacrificed a lot of accuracy. The historical details are hellishly complicated and not suitable for RPGs. Yeah, I wanted like 3 or 4 categories. Yeah, Lucas was saying that too many rules tend to slow the game down dramatically. I had been thinking about an appropriate level of detail was like 3 or 4 different categories of weapons and or armor. Hang on, I hear somebody at the door. Just one second. That's odd. Just one second. Okay, I'm not used to being here when all of a sudden somebody knocks on the door. I got okay. It was somebody from a local church, so they were coming to talk. Okay, studded leather armor, campaign use. Studded leather armor is known as poor man's mail because of its metallic components at a low price. It's more common among the general population than most people would first believe, because unlike other types of mail armor, studded leather is relatively easy to make. While a soft leather backing is the most durable and comfortable, any stout cloth can be used as a backing for the rivets. The rivets themselves are also easy to acquire, as everything from nails to pebbles can be substituted at one time or another in times of great desperation. Nails to pebbles? Like, I'm not sure what it's talking about here. Like, some people, the spiked kind of, did I give them any cultist coffee? I did not. I did not. Lucas says, me and my brother are running the classic against the slave lords tomorrow. I don't know that one. But I'm not sure what it's talking about with pebbles. Is it talking about having people like glue armor, like glue pebbles onto leather armor? That's kind of strange. Which I would also doubt existed. Like, by the time you glue pebbles onto armor, you probably don't have anything very supple anymore. I don't know. I would be interested to know where they were getting some kind of reference for that. In general, as long as the backing is secure and the rivets are hard enough to withstand a glancing blow, the armor comprised should be considered studded leather for the purposes of weight and protection. Studded leather, like brigandine, described later, is commonly worn by pirates and other seafarers. The protection afforded is better than normal leather armor, which is an important point during sea combat when a shield may not be practical. A shield is useless when climbing or fighting a ship's rigging. Just listening, but the music made me chuckle, made me check in and see what's going on. Oh, yeah. Like, I don't live in an area where like people knock on my door very often. With regard to swimming, the weight of studded leather is significantly less than metal armor, and the flexibility of the soft leather backing is better for such demanding activity. Indeed, for short times in the water, it's as easy to maneuver in studded leather as it is to move a normal leather breastplate. Like, how do they know that? Therefore, most seagoing mercenaries and pirates prefer to wear studded leather as all-purpose armor. Trained marine contingents, however, whose main function is boarding, usually wear normal leather and carry a shield. Miserly merchants who shave pieces off gold are more likely than they admit, will often buy studded leather to outfit their hired guards. However, these copper pinchers pay for the protection one way or another, as studded leather tends to wear out rather quickly. Once again, we're talking about armor wearing out again rather quickly. Not only does the soft backing wear out as quickly as thick clothing, but the metal studs can be affixed only by driving them through the leather, considerably weakening the overall structure of the backing. Eventually, the holes open up and the rivets drop out. Okay. Studded leather is also prone to the same problems of sweat, grime, and insects as padded armor. Oh, spiked leather. Yeah, so here we're even getting more fancy here. Of course, this is from AD&D, but it's kind of presented in a more historic way. A variation of studded leather is sometimes seen among barbarians of northern climes, and oddly enough, by some hill giant clans, is spiked leather. Much as it sounds, spiked leather armor is studded leather armor in which the rivets have been augmented by sharp spikes. Most intelligent beings would be worried about mounting spikes into their armor, just in case they should trip and fall, not to mention the problems of packing or storing the armor. Overbearing and grappling while wearing such armor inflicts additional weapons damage based on the wearer's size. A small creature inflicts 1 to 2 points of piercing damage. A man-sized creature inflicts 1 to 3 points, and a large creature inflicts 1 to 4 points. These values are considered for each individual attack, not for every round the creature is grappled. Spiked armor is usually made specially for the wearer and costs about 150% of the price of a normal set of studded leather. Spiked armor is occasionally used to equip gladiators, pit fighters, and other specialists. Yeah, I know. Where did they get that? Sable faces worn by pirates and other seafarers. Where that's patently ahistorical. They have their references in the front here. There's small reference in the front, but they don't cite individual things inside this. I'd be interested to know where that came from. I wonder if that's something that they came up with, or if it is something that was talked about with the existence of studded leather. Pebble armor sounds like something from the Flintstones. Yes. Oh, Lynn says you could get by with cutting, piercing, crushing damage categories for weapons, and maybe thrust versus swing for attack modes. Cutting, piercing, you're right. Cutting, piercing, thrusting. That would be 3. That's would be 3. I'd probably grab if I were grabbing 3. But then you could also, are you talking about and then contrast that with, for instance, gambeson, mail, or plate. A shirt made of rocks. Yes, the first thing I want when I'm a pirate is a shirt made of rocks. So that looks like what we have over here. So they went with the nautical theme of some pirates over here in the ship's rigging wearing studded mail. But they don't actually give you a whole lot of detail on this studded armor here. It's difficult to tell what there is. It looks like they have very large kinds of studs here. And it also seems like you'd want to offset the studs. Otherwise, you'd hit. It's possible for them to come right through, a sword and go into the backing if they didn't. If they lined up. So if you staggered them, you used to have that problem. But you don't really illustrate that very well here. And actually over here they don't really illustrate leather armor all that great. It looks like she's sewing something up here. And he's wearing it here. But by far, so far, I would say that's the best depiction. I mean, you're trying to show off the armor here. That's the kind of the purpose of these illustrations. How much time have we got? Oh, we should have a little more time. Let's go and check out, what's the next one? Oh, hide armor. Okay, let's do hide armor. It looks like we'll definitely spend more time talking about this. Well, that's what I would think too. Think Chicago screw and thick leather to secure in the spike. If I were like to make some spiked armor today, that's how I would do it. But I don't think that's a particularly medieval thing. I mean, it looks cool when people are making that kind of thing today. And you see spikes also, but I guess you could sharpen them, but that aren't actually all that dangerous. Hide armor is AC 6. Description. Hide armor is made from the thick hide of a very large animal, an elephant, for example, or many layers of normal leather from common animals like cows. Campaign use. So this is AC 6. So we're going one by one. AC 7. It's still strange to me that padded armor and leather armor are both AC 8. I guess they want you to distinguish them in other ways. So hide is AC 6. Hide armor is much too thick, heavy, and inflexible to use much to be used much in the advanced human cultures. Its weight is comparable to chainmail, but its protection is less. However, among the barbaric humanoid masses throughout the dark forest and misty jungle of the world, hide armor is common. Because of its simple construction, any race of low intelligence or better can make suitable hide armor. I guess it's these guys who are supposed to be wearing hide armor. Again, here, it's not real clear. It's like he tends to be showing. He seems like he's showing you this guy right here, but that guy looks like he's not wearing what they're describing there, and looks like the guy they killed anyway. All that's required is a dead animal and someone to wear its skin. Since no effort to tan the hide is necessary to get basic protection, creatures with a desire for excellent protection at a fair price, usually free, find hide armor ideal for everyday use. Proper tanning, of course, improves the armor's life and acceptance in polite society. The smell of untanned armor, such as any ogre can testify, is something a warrior must get used to. Why would you wear this? Lord Fullmine says, I might use those studs to hold metal plates on the inside. Call it something like brigandine, maybe. Yeah, you probably could do that. I'm sure somebody's done that. If you're trying to make a brigandine, which is probably what inspired the idea of studded leather. Like if you didn't know that there were plates on the inside of a brigandine, then probably that could have been what inspired the idea that, oh, look, it's studded leather. What's giving the defense is the studs and the rivets, but it's actually not. But probably somebody has used the spikes to put together a brigandine. Yeah, like this is but it's also pretty, I mean, the idea that this is more protective than leather armor is interesting here. I guess they were going with, well, it's the leather armor doesn't cover much of the body or something. As mentioned in the section on leather armor, the stiffness that results when hide armor dries completely isn't considered a drawback by humanoids. In fact, without that stiffness, the hide would lose one level of armor class protection. For only a little bit of work, any humanoid worth his hit dice can start adventuring at AC 6 and begin hunting for a shield. So I guess this is more explicitly fantasy. So like primitive humanoid monster armor. Ironically, while leather armor may allow greater freedom of movement, durability, and has a more pleasant appearance and smell, hide armor is usually 2 levels of protection better, AC 6 instead of AC 8, which we were just talking about. It illustrates that humans trust their dexterity and intelligence to avoid wounds during combat, while less intelligent humanoids typically rely on reducing the chances of a vital strike with thicker armor. Huh, okay. So you're supposed to be using a dex bonus with your leather armor. Whereas here, you're not expecting the creature to have much dex. Lord Fullmine says there are Chinese examples of rhino armor and armor made from pangolin scales, but I don't know if they were showpieces or for use. Interesting. Ironically, like padded armor, hide armor is often decorated to show tribal allegiances. Commonly, the type of creature used to make the armor is sufficient. Commonly, the type of creature used to make the armor is sufficient to note clan allegiance, as with the Black Hydra clan fire giants or the Black Bear ogres. Unique to the humanoid races is the habit of affixing some part of one's notable kill to one's hide armor. While this doesn't affect the armor class rating of the armor in any substantial way, it does tend to make one less popular around the civilized campfire, but more important around the humanoid or barbarian camp. Importantly, these trophies, which often include such grisly things as skulls, scalps, teeth, and claws, are considered a sign of ferocity and ruthlessness, and therefore seen many common among high leaders and shamans. The equivalent of hide armor among humans and demi-human races is layered leather armor. The equivalent of hide armor among humans and demi-human races is layered leather armor, wherein layers of normal leather are bonded together to form a thick, heavy plate of protection. This armor is considered hide armor with regard to weight and cost, but does not suffer the problems of odor and disease seen in hide and padded armors. Few human cultures employ hide armor extensively. Most notably, certain northern barbarian tribes sometimes wear thick hide armor. Some of the tribesmen actually believe the hide armor gives them animal-like strength and powers, and the human armors like chain and plate mail actually rob them of innate combat instincts. While this may be dismissed as ignorant superstition, there are shamans of the northern waste who tell great tales of famous suits of hide armor blessed with the spirits of the animals in which they came. Whether or not special hide armor exists, like the white skin of Umputu, which allows the wearer to shape change into polar bears, I guess that's a special AD&D item, is up to the DM, but hide armors offer unique avenues in a barbarian or primitive campaign. Well, all right. I guess we're going to continue from there. So next up, we got scale mail. So it says. I can't say that. Scale armor. All right. Well, let's see here. So I got to get something else to drink. But then I think I am going to turn off the internet and I'm going to do book editing or short story editing here. And try to get that done. I'm moving projects forward. Got to move projects forward. And then in a few days, we'll come back and we'll do a report on different projects and their status and what we've actually got going on here. I also need to get a new dinner and a board game ready. But we're going to look at the stats on those different shows as well. Lots of stuff going out. So I really enjoyed this conversation. Arms and armor is one of my favorite topics. So this makes sense that it would be a great topic of discussion. Everybody likes this topic who is into fantasy games like this. So, all right, everybody, go forth, be creative, be constructive, be productive. Have a wonderful weekend. Play some games. Play some games. It'd be great if you had friends and family over and play some games. But grind on. And I'll see you tomorrow. Later, everybody.